So the session here is Hemp for Food, and we're welcoming the founder of Nutiva to join us here via a web link. This is John Roulac. He's a tireless advocate for hemp farming in the United States, and the proof is in his impressive bio. Not only has he authored 3 books on hemp cultivation, also in 2001 he successfully sued the US Drug Enforcement Administration to keep hemp foods legal. And of course, Roulac is the founder of Nutiva, which sells USDA organic hemp products among numerous other responsibly sourced ingredients in retailers across the country. Nutiva is the leading organic hemp brand in the United States. So, ladies and gents, please do welcome from across the world, John Roulac.
Good afternoon. So I'm saying hello to you from the sunny coast of Northern California. And it's Thursday afternoon. Good morning to you there in New Zealand, Friday. So just to appreciate the introduction, and it's good to see the progress of hemp in New Zealand. I've been at this in promoting hemp in the United States and also in Canada for over 20 years. And we're going to talk a little about the opportunities with hemp here in the United States and also how it may apply to around the world. Started back for me in 1999. I went to a hemp conference called Bioresource Hemp in Germany, and really showed the opportunity for hemp, for not only for seed but also for fiber and other building materials. And that was quite opening. But it's taken many years to make progress. I know in New Zealand and also in Australia you've had your shares of regulatory hurdles and challenges. So congratulations on the recent success of removing some of those. Now the real work starts to begin instead of just dealing with bureaucracy. So Nutiva, we started out with 500 hemp bars in 1999. People thought it was marijuana. People just didn't really have an understanding of what hemp food was, so I had to do a lot of education. And then sold 500 more of those and grew those. And today we're in about 1.5 hectare facility just outside of San Francisco, where we have our production, manufacturing, and offices. And we're in about 20,000 stores around the world, including not only hemp foods, but also coconut and chia foods. So as mentioned, one of our challenges was in 2001, our esteemed federal government says that our hemp bar was in the same category as heroin. Hard to believe. And basically that meant that if I continued to sell our hemp bar, that I would face 10 to 15 years in jail and would be in the same category as international drug dealers. So I didn't really like that, and so kind of a stubborn guy. So I partnered with several people in our industry, and we sued the DEA, and we were fortunate to win in 2004. But then at that point, we could sell hemp, but we couldn't grow it. And the joke for the last decade would be, I would tell people, well, here in America, we can grow hemp, we can sell hemp, but you can't grow it. And in Australia and New Zealand, you could grow hemp, but you couldn't sell it in terms for food. People always kind of scratch their head. It's like, what are these people thinking? And so now we've had some progress on the legislative front. In 2014, we were able to pass a hemp research growing bill in the United States. And just to confirm, we've been importing our hemp seeds from Canada since 1999, and it's been legal to grow in Canada since 1998. So they've been a good supplier. And if any of you want to really learn about how the hemp industry works and growing, processing, Canada is definitely a good country to go visit because they're up to speed. And there's going to be a conference. I think it's sometime in the next 60 days. The Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, very good conference in Vancouver, BC. So if you want to make a trip to the West Coast, it's a good conference. Also, speaking of conferences, there's one in Denver, Colorado, called NOCO. That's in April of every year, and that's the biggest hemp trade show I think in North America. So a little there. Then, as I said, we won this battle in 2014 to pass, so we could grow for research, but there were still questions about commerce and crossing borders, et cetera. But it got seed in the ground. There's about 60, maybe 40,000, 50, 60,000 acres being grown today. And then we still couldn't grow it completely in terms of full commercial without having some of the regulations being tied up with the bureaucrats again. So in 2018, the Hemp Farming Act has been introduced and it's close to being passed, and that should allow for complete cultivation and production and manufacturing. And the important thing, it's going to include not only seed, but any part of the plant that is less than, from plants that are less than 0.3% THC. This is going to open the way for CBD. And I'll talk a little about that and the excitement around that, around CBD. So first off, why hemp foods? As many of you are aware, more people are looking for more nutrient-dense foods. The real food movement, the organic food movement is large all over the world. Hemp has got a great source of omega-3s. And also, besides the omega-3s, it's rich in GLA and SDA, which hemp is one of the only food sources in the world to have that. And they're kind of the precursor to EPA and DPA, DHA. So really good for anti-inflammatory, et cetera. So I think one thing in terms of hemp breeding, I'd encourage people to breed varieties that could increase the SDA and the stearidonic acid and also the GLA. The other good thing about hemp is it has an excellent protein source. The whole seed is about 23% protein. The shelled seed, or some people refer to as hemp hearts or hemp nuts, are around 33% protein. And it has a very positive, the structure is the protein structure is very easy to digest, whereas some proteins people have a harder time, and I think that's an important thing. So hemp protein is a good product. I'll just show you a bag here of hemp protein that we sell. And then the other thing that's hemp is very positive in is minerals. It's one of the best sources of magnesium and zinc and iron. In fact, 3 tablespoons of hemp protein for the United States in our recommended daily intake is over 50%. 90% of most people in the industrialized world are short in magnesium. It's involved in over 300 biochemical processes. So definitely encourage people to enjoy the hemp seed and also iron and zinc as mentioned. So a lot of good nutrition there in the seed. In terms of talk maybe just briefly on the growing processing, and I know you've been in your region and in Australia been growing for several years. It's important to get the different varieties and when you're harvesting it, when it comes off the field, it's really important to dry down the seed crop to make sure it has the right moisture, so then it protects itself, because many farmers sometimes will grow the crop, they'll store it, and it's not like a lot of the farmers more sophisticated have aerations in their storage bins, and then that keeps the moisture level correct. So that's an important thing. Really, the way you handle it off the field and then process it and then to the final shelf to the customers is important. And then on the processing side, it's important when you do shell it or you crush it or you mill the protein that you bring it into a facility so it doesn't get too hot, and then get it into the package. And so many hemp food products, sometimes not properly handled, can have an off flavor. So a really fresh tasting hemp nut, nothing better in the world when you put that in your salad or put it over vegetables, what have you. So it's important on the processing side there, and final there. In terms of CBD, that's just to let you know, in terms of the U.S., about 70 to 75% of all the acres in the United States right now is for CBD. And that's being used as it's also sold as a hemp extract, and people are using that for better sleep, for anxiety, just an overall nutritional supplement. Certain people have certain conditions such as epilepsy are showing benefits, and that's where there's a really high value and margin. There's not a lot of hemp being grown for fiber in the U.S. or in Canada, but that is starting to pick up. There's some interest there. So CBD's got a lot of potential from the flower there. It's a bit of a boom right now, and the question is what's going to happen to the price and how big can the demand be? But there's a huge growing demand. It's one of the fastest growing natural supplements in the world today. On the fiber side, we're seeing interest in how you can process the fiber, but the markets are more limited. One potential pathway is to combine hemp fiber with wool, and obviously New Zealand's a major leader in wool production, and so it's much easier to spin hemp and wool than it is hemp and cotton. So there's some initial research in the United States on that, but it's just still at a small scale and a research scale. And then also the other area that's a company called Sunstrom that has facilities in Tennessee and is opening up one in Manitoba in Canada, is taking hemp fiber and using it for insulation as a replacement for fiberglass, a much lower carbon footprint, and so that's got some potential. Before a couple things I wanted to mention before I close up and take opportunity for some questions is I see hemp as an important role in regenerative agriculture. Hopefully some of you have heard what regenerative agriculture is. If you kind of think of the tradition, the agriculture where we're using a lot of industrial chemicals and, a lot of tillage and reducing the soil quality, that's kind of regenerative. The next phase was sustainable. We're going to do a little less bad. And regenerative is where we regenerate the soil, we bring carbon back into the soil through more crop diversity, composting, et cetera. So hemp's got a great opportunity there to be part of a rotation system around regenerative agriculture. And agriculture is the #1 contributor to climate change in the world today, and hemp can play an important role in that. And really, unless we bring that carbon back into the soil, we're going to have a significant challenge in the world with our climate. And there's a film that I'm a co-producer of called Kiss the Ground, which will be out this fall that basically, or like in October, November, which describes how the stories of how we're using regenerative agriculture to create better foods and better farming systems. So appreciate the opportunity to share that here today. I think the hemp foods is an exciting opportunity in the hemp seed sector, and looking forward to seeing this grow around the world, not only here in the United States, but also to you in New Zealand and other countries. So glad to take any questions now.
Thank you very much, John. Fantastic to have you here. Just before we get into the Q&A, what I'd like to do is our audience here, just to give John a massive round of applause, ladies and gents, a formative force in the hemp industry. Cool. So I've got a few questions here for you, John. Initially, how did you get people on board to grow for you?
Well, it was ironic. We actually had too many growers in Canada and no market. So there was lots of people growing in Canada, and they just needed a market. So that's how it started for us. And now today, people are getting into it they're being more drawn to CBD. And then some people are starting to get into fiber, into the seed crop.
Cool, thanks, John. Would you be interested in buying New Zealand hemp?
At this point, we're really focused. We have relationships with our Canadian farmers, and we're focusing on developing more into the U.S., into the local region. So at this time, right now, it's not a pathway for us. That may change in the future, but for the foreseeable future, we're pretty set with our North American supply chain.
Cool, thank you for that. What's the recommended moisture content to store seed?
I shouldn't. I was. I don't have that exact. I'm think it's yeah. I'm thinking it's like under 10%. But um, uh, usually, the people in our supply chain work on that. But it's important to. It's not. That's not hard to get that number. But you want to make sure you get that right and bring the moisture level down so you can store it. Yeah, you don't want to have it too high.
Cool. And in your experience, how can we change the perceptions of hemp to the New Zealand public who still regard all cannabinoids as marijuana?
I think I think doing food tasting would be really important, and working with millennial folks who are bloggers and Instagrammers, and talking about all the different ways they can use hemp seeds. I mean, basically, our whole idea was to use hemp food to destigmatize the industry to the hemp attack. So if people are eating in their cereal, they're making smoothies. When they go to the gym, they have a bar there where they're getting a hemp bar. Then they're just not going to think of this as this evil crop. And there has been a whole campaign against it. It's a ridiculous, but it has been very harmful for the whole planet. This attack on drugs and plants, et cetera. So just getting more people to use it, really, and that's what I encourage people to do. Really work with the social media. That's a big thing for us.
Just on the basis of that, to what extent is education an ongoing issue in the US?
It's what still needs to work on it. People think hemp is pot still, but there's so much media now around hemp, so it is really growing, the awareness. So, ironically though, the hemp food sector has not grown. It's slowed in the last few years. So that's always the challenge. It's kind of hemp is not. It was exciting 5 years ago, and now it's been around. We started in 1999. So now our challenge is how do we kind of reinvigorate it? So that's always. But you're in a little different situation. But a lot of demos at stores, go to fairs, things like that.
Cool, thanks for that. Talking around the elements of cannabis law, there was a lot of propaganda that's being used in terms of propagating some of the untruths behind cannabis, and which has led to the essentially brainwashing of public perception. Do you believe, or should there be a part of the hemp industry that makes its own propaganda in retaliation?
Well, I mean, I would call it education, and so I wrote a book right here called Hemp Horizons that you can buy on Amazon. It's actually out of print, but you can buy it used. And then I published this book called The Cultivation of Hemp, which I checked on Amazon. I think it's going for like $300 or $400 now. It's by Ivan Boschka, this great Hungarian hemp breeder that wrote this book in 1994 and got it translated from German into English. But we do need to educate people, maybe you need to do a consumer hemp show in like Auckland, but how do you find people who are influential? Celebrities or people in their own networks. I mean, you're not that big a country. If you could go after a couple hundred people that are influential in different areas, whether it's fashion or sports or what have you. I mean, how about if you get some of those rugby players? You get one of them flogging it.
I like your out-of-the-box thinking. It's very, very cool. Now, what you mentioned a couple of properties of hemp earlier in your presentation. What are STA and GLA?
Yeah. SGA and GL. SDA is stearidonic acid and GLA is gamma-linolic acid. So GLA is omega-6 and SDA is omega-3, but they're not. You find omega-3 and omega-6, let's say in soy oil, canola oil, and also hemp oil. But hemp has what I call super omega-6 or GLA and SDA or stearidonic acid. So it's on the pathway. So your body has to convert simple omega-3 to SDA to then EPA and DHA. So it's kind of a little scientific, but without getting overly scientific. Some people who are under stress can't necessarily process simple omega-3s. That's why some people advocate using fish. The challenge with the oceans is the oceans are becoming so polluted and so much plastic and chemicals, et cetera. I personally don't eat fish anymore, even though I was a fisherman as a young child and was in the crab business. That was had 5 crab pots when I was 13. But I'd like to say that hemp is the closest crop on the land that resembles fish oil because it's got those advanced fatty acids.
Thanks, John. Just conscious of time, got a power of questions for you, which will hopefully will get you to answer, and then we'll drill these back to the audience. But as we look at the time here, what's the size of your market in terms of revenue, and what's the projected growth opportunity there?
I think that hemp. I should know these numbers a little more. I have to say I stepped down as CEO this past year. And now I'm chairman of the board and chief visionary officer. So I'm less involved in all these numbers off the tip of my tongue. But I think it's like $500 million in the U.S. the overall hemp market, and that would be oils and foods and fiber, et cetera. But the fastest growing sector is CBD, and I know 2 companies alone are selling around $80 million a year in CBD, but there's literally thousands of companies are jumping into this. So I think the hemp food sector is not growing so fast in the U.S. It's pretty mature. It's probably $200 million.
Cool. John, that's absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much for your time for us here this morning in New Zealand. Really appreciate your information that you provided for us, and I'll ask our audience here once again to thank you in the traditional manner. Fine round of applause. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gents, John Roulac joining us there from the United States. A fine way to start out our morning here, second day of the iHemp Summit 2018.